Have you ever felt like life was rigged against you? Like everyone else got the instruction manual and you're just out there winging it? It kind of feels like you're playing life on hard mode and it seems like everyone else got the cheat codes. If you have ADHD, autism, or any form of neurodivergence, life is harder. You're not just imagining it, but the reason why might surprise you. Before I learned what I'm about to share in this video, I used to think I was just bad at life. I was constantly frustrated. I wanted a fulfilling, successful, happy life, but I felt stuck, exhausted, and like I was failing at things that seemed easy for everyone else. It felt like I had to work way harder to get the same results, and none of my accomplishments actually felt good or worthwhile. And no matter what I did, I just kept hitting the same walls and running into the same problems over and over again. It felt like I was broken. But then I realized something that changed everything. My brain wasn't the problem. The way I was trying to use it was. Once I learned how my brain works, I stopped listening to conventional advice and I started learning and adapting to my own needs unapologetically. And that's when my life started to get significantly better. So today I want to share with you 3 lessons about being neurodivergent that no one else tells you. Once you understand them, you'll be able to stop fighting with yourself constantly and start winning at life. Now let's get into it. Lesson number 1, your diagnosis is a reason, not an excuse. There's a big difference between a reason and an excuse. A reason explains why something happens. An excuse is when you use that reason to justify staying stuck. A diagnosis is simply a reason. It's an explanation, and an explanation is a tool. It can help you understand why you operate and think the way that you do, and why some things are harder for you than others. But what you do with that knowledge is up to you. And I encourage you to use that knowledge as a reason and a tool and a resource rather than an excuse. When I was first diagnosed, I struggled with it a lot. At that time, I had a very narrow and disabling view of my diagnosis. I felt very defeated, and I could only see how I was disabled by the way my brain works. But with time and an intentional effort to make positive changes in my life, I was able to see how the way my brain works is a strength rather than a weakness. And if I try to operate in the way that neurotypical people operate, it is a disability. But if I can accommodate myself and adapt and live life on my own terms, it's actually a strength. So I want you to know that regardless of a diagnosis, you can do and accomplish anything you want to in life. It will take effort, trial, and error, and you will need to make adjustments to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. But please, please don't use your diagnosis as an excuse for why you can't have the kind of life you want to have or live the kind of life you want to live. You can grow and learn and thrive, but doing that doesn't mean ignoring your struggles. It means understanding them and working with them instead of letting them hold you back. Lesson number 2. Yes, your life is hard, but comparison won't help. Your struggles are real, but so are everyone else's. It may feel like life is harder for you than everyone else, but that's not always true. Sometimes things are actually way easier for you than they are for other people. Just like neurotypical people don't understand what it's like to be neurodivergent, neurodivergent people don't understand what it's like to be neurotypical. And constantly comparing your pain and struggle to someone else's perceived lack of pain and lack of struggle doesn't make your life any easier. So if you catch yourself thinking, my life is so much harder than theirs, remember that just like your life is hard in ways that other people can't see, other people's lives are hard in ways that you can't see. And instead of comparing yourself to other people, try comparing your current self to your past self. What have you learned? How have you grown? And what did you used to struggle with that you don't struggle as much with today? That's what actually matters. One of the mottos I live by today is, how can I make future Rachel's life easier? So if I'm ever struggling or feeling frustrated, I try to think about, what can I do today to make future Rachel's life easier? And that's what I focus on instead of comparing myself to other people or thinking about how much I'm struggling. Which brings me to lesson number 3. You might be making life harder for yourself. Trying to succeed with a neurodivergent brain in a neurotypical world is like being a fish being told to climb a tree. You could spend your whole life feeling like a failure, or you could realize you were never meant to climb trees. You were meant to swim. The moment you stop forcing yourself to be something you're not, everything changes. Sometimes the struggle isn't just about being neurodivergent. It's about where you're trying to succeed and how you're going about it. If life constantly feels like an uphill battle, ask yourself, am I trying to climb trees when I should be learning how to swim? Maybe you're pushing yourself to work in ways that just don't suit your brain. And maybe you're just forcing yourself to operate in an environment that was never designed for you to succeed. The key isn't to become better at something that drains you. It's to find your best way of doing things. Instead of fighting to be the best tree climbing fish, go find your pond or your ocean where you can swim and be free and thrive. At the end of the day, I want you to find what comes naturally to you and build a life around that, not what other people want you to do or tell you that you should do. Here's the biggest takeaway. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not a failure. You just think differently, and that is not a weakness. When you're in the right environment and you have the resources that you need, it's an incredible strength. If any of this resonated with you, drop a comment and let me know which part hit home the most. I post content regularly on mental health and personal growth for the neurodivergent community, so hit subscribe if that's your vibe and check out this next video.